It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
New research out from the Regional Australia Institute tells us that Sydney residents are driving a significant migration to regional areas. 41% of people are considering a move due to high living costs and housing prices. And because the housing market is set to grow, what is that figure amongst Gen Zs likely to be in 5 years from now? Well over 60%, I'll put that to you. It's a brain drain out of Australia's largest city. It is happening where you are. People in Brisbane are going into the regional Queensland areas.
It is happening to some extent from Brisbane into the regions, and it is a phenomenon that we're seeing across all capital city markets. And people are looking for some draw cards of those regions, including more affordable housing and cheaper living costs, because these are the things that capital cities can often make it harder for people to stay in capital cities at times where housing just keeps escalating in value.
Yeah, living costs, what a nightmare every time we're going to the supermarket. Yes, can we bring the cost of food down, please? Now, Brisbane's listing volumes, that remains well below average, with house and unit stocks down sharply compared to longer-term norms. This constrained supply, it does mean that buyers are often competing for limited choices, which is why Brisbane is still recording these price growths and behaving differently to Sydney and Melbourne.
Correct. So over the last month, the first month of January, we saw Brisbane escalate in dwelling values 1.6%. Now, compared to Melbourne, which changed 0.1%, and Sydney, which changed 0.2%, that's the very different price growth momentum. Now, of course, different segments of the market in Brisbane are performing slightly differently as well, and I'm happy to unpack that more.
And Brisbane's unit sector, we should talk about this because it has outpaced houses in recent performance, driven by tighter apartment supply, strong affordability relative to detached housing, and rising demand near transport and employment hubs, which really is positioning units in Brisbane as very attractive options. So units outperforming houses at the moment.
That is correct. And I believe a lot of this has come down to affordability pressures because housing's become less affordable and less accessible to a lot of people. So more buyers have therefore pivoted to units and townhouses. Now, for perspective, over the last 12 months, the unit market here in Brisbane has escalated 18.3% compared to the house market, which has increased 15.1%. Now, compared to other capital cities around Australia, both segments of the market have certainly outperformed, but the unit result here in Brisbane is unique to our city, and a lot of that has been caused by a lifestyle change, demographic demand for inner and middle ring locations, and that affordability pressure that I discussed earlier.
Now, tell us a little bit about Braidwood, because it isn't just another country town. The whole place is heritage listed. People might have seen it on the screen. Is this true? Mick Jagger filmed Ned Kelly, and Nicole Kidman also filmed there with a movie called Flirting.
Yeah, that was some time ago. But yeah, the Ned Kelly film was quite an eye-opener for the local area. It was a bit of a funny film that they made here. Mick stayed at the local pub, and after he left, they auctioned off a lot of the furniture that he may have slept in or touched. He was here doing the film, and I believe he damaged his hand at one stage when a prop gun went off, and he spent some time here injured and wrote Brown Sugar.
Wow. Okay. Did not know that. That is a nice piece of history coming out of Braidwood. Now, while some areas are sweating on prices, Braidwood seems to be holding strong. Can you give us the median price and what's been happening with the housing situation?
Post-COVID, we had a very busy time, an unsettled market. There was a lot of people that had holiday homes down in our area that came down to sort of escape the apartment living and then realised that they prefer the lifestyle in the country and made a permanent move. We had a lot of people fighting over property, and it took us a good 24 months to get the market back under control. Last year was quite stable, but then come December, we had a real rush on, which is not typical. We normally see the market quieten up before December, but we probably did one of our busiest months for the last year. And then January followed on. We had another bit of a rush after Christmas, which again doesn't typically happen given a lot of people are on holidays. But now we've noticed a bit of a decline, more so in having the right amount of stock. We sort of cleared the deck of what people were looking for. There's still buyers out there, but we just don't have enough of the right stock. So I'm hoping, come into March, April, people start getting their places on the market and we can fill the needs of the people that we've got waiting.
We should talk about the geography of the area because you're only an hour from the capital of Canberra and just 45 minutes from the coast of Bateman's Bay. It's why you probably see so many cashed up tree changers flocking into the area, eh? And you've also got them from Sydney.
I think the location of Braidwood is certainly one of the draw cards. The heritage listing over the town, which we sort of touched on, people went to Bowral 40 years ago because it was a little, country town with a community 3 hours from Sydney, and that's became very popular and sort of turned into a satellite suburb of Sydney now with all the same shops. Because we are a real community here and the heritage listing covers the surrounding land around the town, there's a safeguard that the Braidwood Township footprint will remain pretty much the same as it was when they laid out the Georgian grid. So I think that's a real want for a lot of people because a community is hard to come by these days with so much growth. People don't have that sense of being part of something. I was looking at some statistics the other day. We've got 94 local community groups in our area, which I think is unbelievable when you start reading the list of how many groups there are and what they are made up of. But anyone coming here, regardless of your background, there's always some way for them to slot into the community and feel part of something.
In the US Epstein files, they have been delayed in the US, but maybe more will come to light through the UK inquiry, at which point Trump and his Republican Party won't have any control over. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. Are you following this low-life specimen called Andrew, who we are finding out more about and might be going to jail if the police can prove their case?
Well, let me say that Andrew was born in the same year that I was born, but he isn't representative of my age group with his actions. And I remember even way back when I was quite young, in my 20s, there was a young woman by the name of Koo Stark who was a stripper, and she set all the cat amongst the pigeons because he was actually dating her. And at that time, I can remember thinking, this guy's a bit sleazy, but I had no idea that that was only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the things that he's been involved in, allegedly, it's crazy.
Yeah, we like to throw that word in, allegedly, but yeah, Thailand not off his radar. I suppose it's giving Thailand a bit of a bad rap here because one can only draw the bow so finely in terms of what he might be doing in Thailand.
Yeah, and I can remember back in the Kustak days, it was really a big thing. And that's where he first got his nickname Randy Andy because of his relationship with Koo. And we all thought that was absolutely shocking. But really, in hindsight now, that's nothing compared to the sorts of things that he has allegedly been involved with since. And when evidence begins to mount up on top of each other, layer by layer by layer, you have to ask yourself the question, whether smoke, there's generally fire. And so allegedly, because we have to say that, nothing's been proven yet, but behind the scenes, we can all have our own opinions, and the opinions would have to be that he's probably partaken of some pretty dubious actions and really surrounded himself with the kind of people that self-respecting citizens just normally wouldn't.
Yes, the thing with Randy Andy is he just didn't realise he was being played as he has been by Epstein. a bit of a talking point this morning. Let's get it back to real estate because interest rate hikes are starting to test confidence across Sydney with signs of a, shall we say, more cautious tone emerging in the auction market. While many properties are still selling above reserve, behaviour, Margaret, seems to be shifting here because PropTrack tells us around 24% of listings are now transacting prior to auctions as vendors accept strong early offers.
I think there's a general fear that what is going to happen from here is that we will see those additional interest rate hikes that have been flagged by many economists toward the end of last year. And at the beginning of this year, we already saw one of them transpire. And so I think what we're going to see now is people or vendors have this fear that if they don't take those early offers, they're going to go to auction, be passed in. Next minute, there's another interest rate hike every 6 weeks. We are looking at a meeting of the Reserve Bank and that they're then going to miss the boat on getting that good price that they're after for their property. At the moment, we're still seeing a bit of activity in the market. To me, it's the early signs that we are going to definitely see a market slowdown. And let's be honest, it's about time.
And I want you to spare a thought this morning for a woman living in a homeless camp north of Brisbane who says that she fears for her children's safety every night. Now, this is a mother of 7 who was denied social housing because her Centrelink parenting payments placed her above the income threshold. She now sleeps in tents with her children and relies on charity support. Under current rules and regulations, eligibility would require surviving on less than $18 per person per day, a figure she says is unlivable. I'd have to agree. 7 children living in tents at night. Now, is that the Australia that we know and love?
Good morning, Craig. Thanks for having me. Yes, it is completely outrageous. Surely there is room in the budget to help people like this. It doesn't seem fair. It's shocking, actually.
Talking of streets, Melbourne families are waiting patiently for the next potential rate decision and the prospect of repayments rising to about $104 a month on a $650,000 loan. How are you finding it in terms of your clients wanting to buy property? They're cautiously being probably more prudent, are they?
Yes, they are a little bit more cautious, but I don't believe the potential $24 a week increase in repayments is going to stop many people, including first home buyers, wanting to get into the market. I haven't really seen any people that concerned about the rate increases. Yeah, I'm still getting a lot of inquiry about buying property.
Fully assessed pre-approval, especially for first-home buyers. You know, when it comes to going to auctions, this is very, very important because there are 2 types of pre-approvals, aren't there?
Yes, that's right, Craig. There is the system-generated pre-approval, which essentially is just an application submitted, but it just runs through some very basic checks like credit checks, but nothing's actually assessed against policy. Whereas you've got the fully assessed pre-approval, which is essentially a full application assessed by an actual human, a credit assessor that has checked all income and everything against policy, bank policy. So everything's ticked off up front. When you're buying at auction, it's obviously unconditional, so you don't want to be in the position where your documentation and your income hasn't been fully assessed because it may result in a decline when you go to convert it to formal approval.
Have you kind of inherited some of these people that have done that where they're not fully approved and they've gone to an auction, they've committed that ultimate sin and perhaps they've then said, because they might not have had a mortgage broker, and they've said, well, maybe we need a mortgage broker in the mix here. We've got ourselves a bit unstuck.
Absolutely. I have had people come to me in this situation and they are very stressed. So I usually can find them a solution, but some people are really stuck if they only really had 1 or 2 lenders that they qualify with. there's a lot of moving parts in a mortgage application. So if they don't match up with a lender, it can be very stressful. Sometimes they'll have to go to like non-bank lenders, potentially higher rates, and they may fail servicing due to the higher rates. So yes, it can be very stressful for clients. Yep. And I have actually heard from colleagues of clients losing their deposit because they can't complete the purchase. They can't get approval anywhere.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.